really happy that you could join us and bring news about Techstars to Startup Grind community. Before we jump there, could you take us a little bit through your background, personal and professional, however you want to structure it? I'd like to hear your story. Community will be anxious.
Thank you, Namal. First, I'd like to thank you for the invitation. It's really a privilege and an honor to be speaking on this platform of yours that serves the community in such a helpful way. I think your interest, we've talked about this before, those of Startup Grind and Founder Institute and Companion, all the wonderful institutions that you serve and support, they're very much aligned with the mission of Techstars, which is to build startup communities. So I wanted to thank you for being a part of building the startup community, which we do all over the world, and you do very well here in the Nordic countries. I've been in the audience numerous times on these calls. For people in the audience, these calls that Nimal hosts are one of the ways that I learned about the Nordic startup community. They were a great vehicle and entry point for me coming from outside of Sweden, outside of the Nordics. And you set a very high standard that I hope I can live up to today, because I've found such interesting content from virtually all of your speakers in the past. And I wanted to thank you for the invitation and for the chance to join that very illustrious group of previous speakers you've had. I know what it's like to sit in the audience and be kind of blown away by the speakers and by your moderation. You're also an excellent moderator. I hope that I don't expect to reach that high standard you set, but I hope to live up. If I do half as well as your speakers, I'll be okay.
Thank you so much, Alfredo. It's been a pleasure to have you here, and our conversations in past and in close past have also been, we see Techstars as a big boost for startup community here, and your own experience in this space to be a major bridge builder in the entire community. And bridges are what ecosystems are about. So really happy that you could join us today and bring Techstars to the canvas in Sweden. Both things.
Thank you. I love that phrase, bridge builder, and I want to encourage people in the audience to reach out to me as a form of building bridges as well. And I just ask that if you reach out over LinkedIn, that you just put a little note in your invitation saying from Startup Grind. I get a lot of unaddressed messages, and I think, who is this person? So if you just say from Startup Grind, there's an immediate connection. So if you do want to reach out, I encourage you, please just say from Startup Grind, so I'll be able to distinguish you from other people who are reaching out unbidden.
Great. So Techstars being like, you have entered the Swedish market now. What personally attracted you, Alfredo, to Techstars, if I may ask that?
Sure. So I have, you talked about my personal narrative, and I think people's personal narratives can be really interesting one-to-one when you're having a beer with somebody. One-to-many, I don't know if people are really interested in hearing my personal story. I think what attracted me to Techstars is linked to my personal narrative, because I'm not from Sweden. I haven't lived in Sweden for a long time. I've lived in Sweden for 9 months. But I often hear, oh, you came to Sweden with Techstars. You're an American. I'm not only an American. And you are the person sent from Boulder, Colorado to open Techstars in Sweden. And that is not true at all. So I think the way I arrived at Techstars was they found me helping the community for free, helping young founders and older founders for free here in Stockholm and in Sweden. And that's exactly the sort of people they're looking for. And I can talk about how I got to Sweden and why I was helping people for free. That may or may not be of interest, but Techstars reached out to me and said, we've heard about the work you're doing here. Let's talk. And I think that's very emblematic of the way that they operate in a market. They seek super connectors. They seek people who are giving first, which is one of our mantras and hashtags. They seek people who are trying to win as a team, and they're not out for themselves. And frankly, I find that attitude to be very congruent and in line with the Swedish way of operating, and also more broadly the Nordic way of operating. Collaboration and a concern for the community and a concern that goes beyond oneself is very much the Techstars way. It's not necessarily the American way these days, especially if you watch the news, but it's very much the Techstars way. So I think it's important to say I'm not a Techstars lifelong employee who got seconded to Sweden. I was in Sweden working on my own, and Techstars found me. And I think that's really a testament to the way they reach out to startup communities. I would also say Techstars is formally in Sweden for the first time with an accelerator program, but Techstars has been in Sweden for many years. through Startup Weekend, which is an organization that they acquired many years ago, that unfortunately went dormant in the pandemic. You probably know Erica and Tatiana, who ran Startup Weekend in Stockholm for many years and all over the Nordics. They've done a fantastic job. And in a pandemic, you simply can't gather 500 people for a weekend together to run a hackathon and to take people and turn them into ideas. And it's unfortunate that the pandemic changed the way Techstars went to market. We hope to bring that back very, very soon. There was talk of that in Denver this week of doing so. But we are coming to Sweden for the first time with a formal 13-week, twice yearly accelerator program. So it's important to say Techstars is not entering the market for the first time. Techstars is starting an accelerator in Stockholm to serve the Nordic market for the first time. And it's also important to say that we are techstars.com. We are not techstars.se. If you Google Techstars Sweden, especially with a Swedish IP address, another company comes up entirely. And I wish them very, very well. They say that they are Techstars, and but their branding, their design, their whole entity is very different from ours. So I've had some founders say to me, what is this Techstars of Sweden? We are not Techstars of Sweden. We are Techstars from the United States, opening an accelerator program in Sweden for the first time, having had a presence in the market for over a decade, running startup weekends. And I can talk about how we build startup communities and we serve founders over their whole formation life cycle, from early days in the community all the way through IPO and exit. I met somebody in Denver this week who, the CEO of SendGrid, which is listed on the New York Stock Exchange, they were acquired by Twilio, and they were Techstars' first IPO for $2 billion. So we literally serve entrepreneurs who are coming to us for the first time with an idea, all the way through to people who've had successful exits. And that speaks to the whole Techstars for Life concept, which is another one of our hashtags. When you join Techstars in any fashion, whether a community builder or somebody who's had a CEO with an IPO, you join for life. This is part of a lifelong community. We are a family in the best sense of the word. We're also a family in that we sometimes it gets a little messy, right? And we have a lot of changes coming and going, but we are a family. And when you join Techstars, you join for life. If you see that Techstars t-shirt or the hoodie, you can stop and have a conversation with somebody and say, what was your Techstars experience like? People put Techstars on their LinkedIn pages. They say, I'm part of Techstars 22, 21. It's that much of a brand in the United States and worldwide. It's not that much of a brand in Europe, and even less so in the Nordics. We're seeking to build that brand here through calls like these. Thank you for the chance. But really, when you join Techstars, you join for life. And I had a call, I ran into somebody in Riga, Latvia at the Tech Chill conference last week who was in the after party of the bar. He was wearing a Techstars sweatshirt. I literally stopped him and we had a conversation, and he said, let me go talk to some founders and let me tell them how great Techstars is. The voices of Techstars are not the managing directors. The voices of Techstars are the founders who've been through the program. They carry the memory and the institutional memory for life with them. They are the ones who speak so capably about the Techstars experience.
Great background on Techstars. And I think what I find very interesting here is, like, if we take Startup Grind, for example, we are built on very similar value structures. So we kind of, as they sensed out the market and reached out to you, Startup Grind operates in a very similar way. We also have a give first philosophy, and it's also a family for lifetime. So I think communities or ecosystem builder organizations which have those values eventually become global, big, and create an impact at a very large scale. So that's great to hear. And great that you also mentioned about the Startup Weekend. I was actually part of one before the pandemic hit. And of course, having physical events was completely out of the question during the pandemic. So great to see the accelerator program starting in Stockholm. If we see the ecosystem around, Stockholm already has several accelerator programs. There are communities which are more focused. So even within accelerator, there are specializations cropping up, like accelerators focused on partnership building. So for example, if we take MasterCard Lighthouse program, they have a massive Infinitive. So more focused on the fintech and more focused on the impact, but then using the global MasterCard network. Lana and Eleanor were here like a few months ago. They use the network side of the brand to take the founders and give them the next boost in their journey. Where does Techstars fit in into the Stockholm's current ecosystem, and what kind of need do you think you are fulfilling in this ecosystem, or a gap that exists?
Well, thank you, Nimo, for the question. I think you're being very diplomatic. I think another way it's phrased is, does Stockholm really need another accelerator? I think that would be the less diplomatic way of phrasing it. And I would say, I don't know. You decide for yourself if you need another accelerator in the absolute. I can tell you what we offer, and I can tell you how we're differentiated. And I have to compliment Sweden and compliment Stockholm, but not just Stockholm, on the level and quality of acceleration that is in the marketplace. And I'll call out a couple of names. You mentioned Impact Hub Stockholm, you mentioned MasterCard Lighthouse. I saw Lana in Riga last week. She's a legend in Stockholm circles. But I would also call out Sting, which is celebrating its 20th anniversary here and does an excellent job. And I would call out Fast Track Malmo down in Malmo, which is a superb job and has applications, 500 applications from around the world even, for 10 spots down in Malmo. And I would say that those accelerators, and this is important for people in the audience to know, are by and large non-commercial accelerators, non-equity. They're often supported by government entities to advance the interests of a region or a city, so Malmo or Stockholm. In other Nordic countries, it's usually done on a national level. Sweden is very decentralized compared to other Nordic countries like Denmark and like Norway. We are a commercial accelerator, and we are here to make money, but we're here to make money alongside entrepreneurs. And because we have a global platform and we're one of the two leading global accelerators, we have an ability to project outside of Sweden, which I think is unique within the Swedish marketplace. To my knowledge, there aren't any other global accelerators who are present in Sweden physically. And I would just say that although the local accelerators in Sweden do an excellent job, and I really stress that, we have a different platform. We have a global platform, having had, and some of these numbers, we've had 7,000 founders go through the program. We've had 3,000 companies go through the program. We've had 1,000 exits. We've had 19 unicorns. We have 330 people working on behalf of local accelerators. 100 of them are investment personnel. 220 of them are not investment personnel. They are lawyers. They are engineers and data developers. They are portfolio services people who service the entrepreneur over their lifestyle journey. And I know that Sting has 30 people here in Stockholm. We have 300 around the world, supporting, I think, 56 accelerator programs in 18 countries. So we are doing venture investing at scale. We fund 600 startups a year to the tune of $100 million. So we spend $100 million investing in 600 startups a year. We have $957 million in assets under management. And we have been doing this for 16 years. So that is what we bring to the market. People can decide, is this just another accelerator? I like to think, having come into Sweden as a newbie and analyzing the marketplace, that we are validating the excellent work that other accelerators have already done in the marketplace. We are not competing with them. We're adding to the vitality and dynamism of the Stockholm marketplace, the Gothenburg and Malmo and Luleå marketplaces, and frankly, the Nordic marketplace. So I like to think that we are making this stronger and pointing to the fact that this is a destination that was missing in our European portfolio. Our accelerator programs in the EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa region are in, wait for it, London, Paris, Berlin, Amsterdam, Tel Aviv, Torino. I don't know if I'm missing somebody. So when you look at that portfolio, saying that Stockholm we're coming to Stockholm is really a way of saying that Stockholm is equivalent to those startup destinations. And I think anybody in Sweden would be proud to say that Stockholm ranks on a list of the foremost startup destinations in Europe, alongside London, Paris, and Berlin, and Tel Aviv, frankly. And Stockholm has that reputation of being a unicorn capital. It's clear that the startup activity in Sweden is not exclusively concentrated in Stockholm, far from it. Malmo and Gothenburg and Luleå, there are very interesting clusters here that really distinguish Sweden from other countries in the Nordic region and even in Europe. You have mobility in Gothenburg. You have battery and energy storage up north. Stockholm, you have is known for gaming and SaaS. Malmo as well. So Sweden has really developed to a degree that stands out in the Nordic region. And I think when I travel to Copenhagen or Oslo or Helsinki, I hear there's a lot of Nordic rivalry, right? I hear, why is it the Stockholm accelerator? I hear that even in Malmo and Gothenburg. And it's because marketing people in New York and Denver looked at the capital Scandinavia, which Stockholm appointed itself as, and said, this is where we should be located. But it's not the Stockholm accelerator, in my view. It's really a Nordic accelerator looking to serve and support the best companies around the Nordic region. And it is a 13-week in-person accelerator program, which will be hosted in Stockholm. You can't participate virtually from Helsinki, but we all know that Stockholm is about an hour away from almost any place in the Nordic region by flight. And it's a cosmopolitan hub for startup activity in the region. And I think in the next 10 years, Techstars is making a bet on the European market. We all know about Silicon Valley. We all know about China and India, but Europe remains this relatively unexplored place for startup activity where valuations are much lower. And we are filling in the map destinations in Europe where we want to be. We have 56 accelerator programs. Our CEO, who's a very visionary French woman, an immigrant to New York, she wants us to have 5,000 companies that we're funding a year. And that would require 200 accelerator programs to fund that. So if you think the market is crowded with Techstars coming to Stockholm, imagine if we are going to have 200 accelerator programs, then you would not be saying, is Stockholm crowded? There would be an Oslo, a Helsinki, a Copenhagen, a Malmo, a Gothenburg, a Trondheim, a Tallinn, a Vilnius, a Riga, a Tampere, a Reykjavik accelerator. There is so much potential for startup activity in the world. We're trying to democratize access to venture funding, and we're writing small tickets and helping people grow. And if you look at it from that perspective, I think the market is a big, deep blue ocean. It's not a swimming pool and we just got, or a bathtub and we just got in and water splashed out. We think we are swimming in a big blue ocean of startup activity worldwide. It's very difficult for entrepreneurs to get access to capital. If you are in certain circles, you think everybody can get funded. But if you pan out and take a wider view, it's actually very hard for entrepreneurs to get startup funding, especially if they are not credentialed in a typical startup ecosystem way. And that really means you're a white male who went to certain schools. So if you think about what we're doing, it's really giving entrepreneurs a chance and bringing them into this family and supporting them through their life cycle, whether it's an early startup weekend hackathon or whether it's that CEO who's had his IPO in the New York Stock Exchange. We service them over the life cycle, and we do it putting diversity first and servicing entrepreneurs who look frankly different. We have 29% of entrepreneurs are female. Harlem Capital in the US identified us as the #1 investor in Black and brown founders in the United States. JP Morgan just raised a fund of $80 million from their own largely Black and Hispanic high net worth investors to run 37 accelerator programs in the United States in underserved communities to get talent capital. And our equation, our formula, our CEO says, is, I have a great slide here from our investor day. Let me just pull it up here.
Yeah, that'll be good to have.
Well, I can't pull it up. It's not officially. The CMO, the chief marketing officer, and the chief legal officer have not approved it for distribution, but I can talk about it. Our formula is capital plus programs plus connections equals opportunity. And people talk about in venture, there are lots of gatekeepers in venture. We're a different breed of gatekeeper because we open the gates to capital. By round 6, if you know the funding rounds for startup, by round 6, a Techstars backed company is 6 times more likely to have raised capital than a non-Techstars startup in the PitchBook universe. I mentioned 29% of our portfolio companies are led by a woman. That compares to 15% in the EU and 14% in the United States. And we also, we practice this at our own internal levels. Our CEO is a woman who's an immigrant. 60% of our executive leadership team is female. Half of them are people of color. I report entirely to women in the organization. My boss and my boss's boss and her boss are all women. So we practice diversity in what we do. I just was together with 300 people in Denver. You would not believe the diversity that we have internally at Techstars. It is something we preach, and we hope as we come to a place like Sweden where diversity is very important, but it tends to take the form of gender diversity. We hope to lead by example and to show how we are different from the market. So this is still a long way of saying, does the market need one more accelerator? I don't know. I can't answer that question for you, but we're a different type of accelerator. And that's no disrespect to anybody who's been in the market building it for decades. We bring a global platform and maybe a focus on changing venture capital from within. And we all know venture capital needs to be changed from within. It's obvious. And if you look at even the biggest firms, they make commitments to changing venture capital that I think are sincere. But I would say, are they doing anything on the ground to actually reflect that? Having one female partner does not change the way that venture investing is done. Having an executive leadership team at 60% female certainly goes a long way towards that with a female CEO. And having the support of female founders along the way. In New York, we had a woman named Liz Georgie, who's the CEO of Suna. And they just raised a $35 million Series B. They're a Techstars company. And I'd like to quote her. She says, Techstars has given me a legitimacy that a lot of female founders just don't have. And from the stage, she said that at our company-wide event in Denver a couple of days ago. It's very important for female founders to have support on their journey. It's just a harder path for them to take. And she described the difficulties of her path. And she said, I've always felt really supported by the Techstars family in being a female founder. I wish there were more entities like that. And I wish that the companies, when I seek investment, I wish that the firms that I go up against in Silicon Valley and elsewhere, I wish they were more diverse. I wish they were more empathetic. So anyway, this is what we're trying to do in the market.
Excellent point. I think market is much bigger than any single or all the accelerators or the programs put together. That's something we discussed at Companion. I've heard that at large organizations like Almi. Like, there's so much entrepreneurship potential and quantum out there that we are always in a situation of being too small to serve the entire potential that's out there. So it's great to have you guys jumping in, and also talking about, when you touched on the point, which is also very close to what I believe in, because in Companion, we have achieved a 50-50 gender split when it comes to advisory processes. And it's hard because this is a structural issue with the entire ecosystem. It's not just the VC industry, it's how advisors work, it's how communication and advertising is working, it's how media speaks. There are so many issues around the lopsidedness of the funding situation that we have, that female founders are not getting funded. And you are absolutely right. In many cases, there is much more lip service than action on ground. So that's something which is a thinking point for ecosystem players who are listening in, that how can we make actual action on the ground. But let's take another, let's go deeper into the acceleration process that you have. And we have had, for example, in the last few months, Anders Hammerback was here from Antler, and before him, Magnus Grimeland was here, who is the global CEO. They talked about Antler. Edior SC was here, and Jonathan Krichin were here from Founder Institute. Now, Antler, as far as I understand from both those talks, is a very much people-focused, so person-focused acceleration program. That's their core model, but then they added other things. Founder Institute is also an accelerator, but more towards the idea side. So we pick up ideas and take them to the market, and maybe early stage pre-seed. What stage do you address when you are taking in founders? Do you have a stage criteria? I know many acceleration in Sweden, accelerators in Sweden. Sweden has an SISP, like Swedish Science Parks and Incubators. Sting, you mentioned, their acceleration program is there. Most accelerators which fund demand some sort of traction on ground. How do you look at stage? Where do you address, and what are your criteria?
Naimo, that's an excellent question, especially trying to locate us in that spectrum of life cycles for accelerator programs and for entrepreneurs. And I would say, just as a prelude to answering that question, or as a way to answer that question, we support founders across their life cycle, starting with the formation stage. So we are pre-formation on the community through Startup Weekend, which is a training ground and a funnel for the accelerator program. We also have a program called Founder Catalyst, which is largely in the United States. At the formation stage, we operate a 13-week, twice yearly accelerator program. I'll be specific about Stockholm's dates. So we have an accelerator program beginning September 8th in Stockholm, ending with September 12th, ending with a demo day on December 8th. Applications for that program close May 11th, so they're about to close. And what we will do is we will take in the applications, we will select 10 to 12 companies, and we will invite them to join the accelerator, which we pay for. There is no cost to join. For the accelerator program, 13 weeks, we do take 6% of your equity to be a virtual co-founder. And we do offer you $120,000 but nobody joins Techstars for the money. But it is a classic US acceleration deal, 6% for 120K. But we operate an accelerator program on the ground for you. We secure real estate for you. We bring in 80 to 100 mentors. That is the classic acceleration model. So we work with founders to give them basically 2 years of company growth in 13 weeks. That's what we talk about. That's how intense it is. On the ground, you asked about mentorship. We bring in 80 to 120 mentors to advise these 12 startups. We have a week called Mentor Madness, where you spend the entire week meeting mentors who are sourced from all over the world. They are sourced specific to the program and to the companies in the program and to the verticals that are represented, but they are sourced for the program itself from all over the world. We help companies accelerate going to market. We help them find product market fit, build a team, get revenue traction, prepare for seed round. We have investor events along the way to stimulate FOMO, fear of missing out, among the investor community, to generate multiple bids for the same company. And an MD, a managing director, facilitates connections through Bridge, which is an app created by a Techstars MD in Berlin, where I can introduce to anybody in my network of 15,000 people. I can make an introduction in 30 seconds on behalf of a founder or anybody in the ecosystem. And then beyond that program, we have a portfolio services team, which I've already talked about, which exists to support founders in their post-program journey. And that is not so the accelerator is not the end. The accelerator is the beginning. You think that we want to get you to a seed round. The average post-program seed round raise is $1 million USD. We have a follow-on fund that can invest in your seed round and does in 30 to 40% of the cases. There's a mechanical 2-minute application, which is non-biased, non-investment committee to join that. And if you get into that, you have a seed investor in your seed round from the very beginning, which is very powerful when you're trying to raise seed funding, saying, I'm a Techstars company. Techstars has quality control. They help make me the company I am today. And they will co-join your round. They will follow on. Think of how powerful it is to go to a meeting trying to raise seed funding, saying, I already have an investor in my pocket. They will follow in the round. They won't lead. But if I can secure a lead investor, I already have Techstars on my cap table. And that is a really validating thing. And then we nurture the network, offer one-on-one support and coaching to entrepreneurs post-program. We help them recruit talent. We help them raise funds. We have access to 20,000 investors worldwide. Like I said, we have 20 engineers in entrepreneur success. That's their job. Of our 52 engineers, we have 15 lawyers. We have 18 portfolio services people. So we have a very deep and rich team. 2/3 of the company exists to support founders post the accelerator program. And there's a lot of lip service in Silicon Valley, especially at smaller firms. We have one person, 2 people doing investor relations, helping our companies on the ground. We have 200. It's really a scale and venture difference. Now, we also have 600 portfolio companies every year. But still, we have a whole support organization that exists to serve founders in their life cycle journey from pre-formation all the way through to IPO. And we've had a number of IPOs, and like I said, 19 unicorns. So we know what it's like to take companies from pre-formation to IPO. In New York, we have a company called Ramp, which was funded pre-seed in New York 2 years ago. The same deal, 6%, 120,000. Their latest round a couple of weeks ago was $8 billion. So they have gone from Techstars pre-seed to $8 billion in value in 2 years. That's obviously not every single company that we have, right? We have a lot of failures as well. But even with companies that fail or people who don't get in Techstars, we invite them to come back. We invite people to found new companies. We are about ecosystem development, and everybody knows that founders fail, and everybody knows that they come back. Everybody knows that's part of the process, and that failure is a badge of honor in the startup community, and then exiting and coming back to support the ecosystem is a badge of honor, and paying it forward is a badge of honor, and giving first is a badge of honor. And that culture, frankly, is not endemic to the Nordics in general because of Jantelagen and Lagom and certain Nordic concepts. But in the startup community, it is very much part of it, and it's becoming more widely disseminated as people realize the importance of startups in creating economic value and frankly generating a tax base to support the very high quality of life and living standard that people benefit from in the Nordic region.
Got it.
I'm not sure I answered your question, Nimo. Did I answer your
That's good. That's good. But tell me, people who are going to be applying to you said May 11th is your last date for application for the Stockholm cohort. Is there any particular focus in terms of verticals that you have, or are you vertical agnostic?
We are vertical agnostic. We do have throughout Europe, we do have some vertical clusters. So I would encourage founders who are vertically focused. You can apply to the beauty of Techstars is you can apply to 2 programs. So if you're in a fintech program, you can apply to our partnership with ABN AMRO in Amsterdam. So we have corporate and government partners, I should say. Equinor in Oslo, which runs a clean tech and energy accelerator. ABN AMRO in Amsterdam. We've had a historical partnership with Barclays in London. Comcast, which is a big American media company in the US. We have the JP Morgan partnership. We've partnered with Disney before. We have a music accelerator in Los Angeles. So we know we have a lot of Swedish companies who have gone to the music accelerator. Sweden is a very musical place. It's very well known for Max Martin and its songwriting. The guy in LA who runs a music accelerator has had a number of Swedish companies go through. They're focusing on music tech. So we are vertical agnostic here in Stockholm, but the beauty of Techstars is we say founder first. Founders can apply anywhere they want in seeking the program that serves them. Of course, Sweden has, and the Nordic region has certain clusters and certain talents compared to other regions. Gaming is one of them, fintech, SaaS, ESG, and climate tech and sustainable climate. Those are all things that we expect to find in the startup community here coming to Techstars, but we are vertical agnostic compared to other accelerators potentially, and also other accelerators even within Techstars. But the beauty of Techstars is you apply wherever you want.
Okay. And the verticals, like you said, the vertical specific programs like fintech or music, are they in person on place, or are they virtual, right? How are they running right now?
They depend. It's really at the discretion of the individual managing director. I think there's a desire to return to in-person programs. I would say we are running a hybrid model we run a hybrid model right now. That's the most virtual that we get. There's so much value of being in person and we would very much like to go back to being in person, but we've also found that the quality and number of entrepreneurs that we can reach is increased by running a hybrid program. So it's really at the discretion of the local managing director, and it's entirely possible for somebody to make an application to a hybrid program and participate remotely, but they would be expected to be in program on the ground in week, say 1 and the last week, and at 1 week in between. And I should stress that a lot of the value is in you as a Techstars company getting to know your 11 alumni companies, the other founders, CEOs, CTOs, and they are your cohort for life. And then you join a larger alumni and founder group and a larger mentor and investor group. But I really think there's value to being part of the retreats that we offer, being part of the Mentor Madness that we offer, building something on the ground. And if you're going to do 13 weeks to accelerate your business 2 years, this founder, Liz Georgie from Suna, she said, Techstars is like summer camp for adults, for business. And it's very, very difficult. It's like grown-up summer camp. She says, there's so few opportunities in your adult life to stop and build yourself and your community. And especially if you want to be venture back, these are all her words. Techstars will put you in shape to talk to investors and to have the things that investors need and are looking for. She said, Techstars is a functional formula for going to market and finding investors. And I know that you asked as well, what is it that we are looking for in Techstars compared to more incubation focused accelerators or people focused? We have 6 criteria. And I always like saying this, the first 3 are team.
Okay.
So maybe what makes us different from other accelerators is we are really focused on strong teams. It's really hard to change your team in a startup environment. It's really easy to change your product and your idea. And we always say, so of the 6 things, The 5 of them, I kind of repurpose them into T's. So it's team, TAM, or market size, total addressable market, traction or progress. And the very last one is product or idea or MVP. And you might think that's funny. Why should your product be last? Well, your product can change, most likely will change, and you will pivot. We all know examples of Twitter and Slack that basically pivot into the products that make them large multi-billion-dollar companies today. But the team is really hard to change. And in the team, it's that, what is that special connection and bond the team has? What is their history of working together? And what skill sets do they bring to the problem they're trying to solve? And so when people apply to Techstars, and people apply, and 30% of the people who apply come back to Techstars having been rejected already. 30% of the companies that get in have been rejected before. And 20% of them go to a program that's not their original first choice. So we encourage people to apply because the mere process of application makes people focus on what is missing from their ability to go to market. And ultimately, that's what investors are going to tell you anyway. So if the application process will help you come to that realization and you apply, and then you get into our network, and we say, not this year, maybe next year, it's a really important process for people to think about it. And if our first three criteria are team and you're a solo founder, then being rejected by Techstars and being told to focus on your team is an incentive to go find that team. So again, it's team, traction, TAM, and then your idea.
But so it means that it's impossible for a solo founder to get into Techstars.
It is not impossible. Not impossible.
Okay.
This is what we focus on. You asked what are our selection criteria, broadly speaking. But for most, it's going to be difficult for a solo founder to participate in a 13-week program, which is team-based, and not feel like they're behind. So it's very possible for somebody to get into Techstars with a very compelling idea, and then raise that team by the time program starts in that 3 to 4 month window between being selected and the program starting. And I don't say we have a bias against it, but we have so many strong teams, and we have 30,000 applications globally for 600 companies we're funding. So, that's a 2% admit rate. People, I know that, Ivy League colleges don't really resonate in Sweden, but in the US, we would say that it's tougher than getting into Harvard. This year, Harvard admitted 3% of its applicants, right? So Techstars is harder to get into than Harvard. And why, if you're a solo founder, you're going to make the odds longer compared to the other team-based startups that are seeking to be part of this 2%. So I encourage solo founders to join a startup weekend and to start getting to know the startup community. And in that startup community, you can often find a team member. It's the proverbial CTO looking for a CEO. It's the proverbial CEO looking for a marketing person. I come to we didn't talk about my background. I came to Techstars with a CFO and investing background. And a CFO is often a very late hire, Series B or later in a startup. But the CFO or director of finance adds so much value. I think every startup at Series A should have a CFO. That's very rare in Sweden. When I took a Series A CFO job, I spoke to VCs. There was no information in their database on comp, on how a CFO should be paid, because their CFOs in Sweden are so rare at the Series A level. So building your team is an iterative process, and your first 3 or 4 team members are critical in your success in your journey. That's why we're focused so much on team. This is a people-based business. It's based on the networks and the connections that you bring. We overlay that. We have almost 700,000 names in our CRM. So when I want to look somebody up, the first place I check is our CRM. With 700,000 people in our CRM, the chances are we already have a connection to them. And I'm not just looking for their email address. I have 5 people who've talked to them, and the CRM tells me who is my strongest connection to this person. And then we have this app called Bridge where I can make an intro in 30 seconds. I mean, that is an incredibly powerful thing to accelerate teams. And the team focus is really, we find that's the formula that makes startups succeed, is a very strong core founding team.
Yeah, very good point. And if we kind of zoom out from it, and generally that's what even accelerators like Sting, Founder Institute, and all, they look for strong founding team members. And that's also important advice for our community out there. So if you have a choice of going in the next 6 months, let's say, it's just an example, to go much deeper solo on your product journey, as opposed to finding in the next 6 months, building a solid team around the same idea, go the team route, it'll increase your chances of getting accepted by accelerators and how you're evaluated in your investor pitches. So team, as Alfredo has said, those are the first three factors to build your startup. Brilliant. So really interesting to know how the entire structure works at Techstars. How do you view impact? Like impact has really picked up in Stockholm. We have seen Norrhen grow from a co-working community or a co-working space to a completely different, how would you say, an ecosystem player, like being not only the funder, but also a catalyst of the entire impact movement. Where does Techstars generally, or in Stockholm, how are you factoring impact in?
But I apologize. I neglected to mention Northwind in those accelerators I discussed that are doing an excellent job, and Funda and Agata and others are doing an amazing job at Northwind on the funding side and on the community building side. I mean, for me, coming to Sweden as an outsider, and I know I have an American accent, but I have 3 passports. I was born in Brazil to American expatriates, an Irish grandfather, and French as well. So I'm in Sweden as a European citizen, and I bring this mindset from outside and looking at Sweden objectively, critically when necessary, but also very much a fan of the system. And it's incredible the community that's been built here by organizations like Northwind. And Impact is an Impact Hub Stockholm. They have really highlighted what is one of the Nordic region's gifts to the world, and what makes the Nordic region so exciting from a startup activity perspective, which is the depth and quality and number of startups in the Nordic region that are trying to make the world a better place. If you say, is Techstars aligned with this? I mean, how could Techstars not be aligned with this, right? With our focus on diversity, with our focus on solving the world's problems, believing in a big, deep blue ocean of startup activity. Some of the world's most pressing problems right now are impact related. And we have dedicated impact programs. We also have programs that have a very strong impact flavor. Our Paris program is very impact focused. And I was fortunate enough at TechChill in Latvia last week to be judging on behalf of they have a 50 founders pitch battle. I judged 10 of the founders, and one of the companies that went through is trying to address the fact that that our bee population is dying worldwide. And he had a Techstars logo on his pitch deck. People were very proud of being Techstars founders. And so there were 2 founders there. Another one is also impact focused out of our Turin program in Italy. Both of them put Techstars. And since I was judging and I had a microphone, this is a little bit like American Idol, you know, these music programs. I said, which Techstars program are you in? And he said, Paris. And I said, Raphael Leyendecker is an amazing MD. So Paris has a very strong impact focus. I would be very surprised if we didn't have incredible impact startups applying to and joining the Techstars program here in the Nordics. I mean, the impact is simply one of the Nordics most, one of the USPs that the Nordic region has worldwide. It would be very, very strange if we didn't have high quality impact startups in the Techstars class in the fall.
Great. We have a couple of questions coming up as well. Some of them I took in the discussion we have already had. Is the application limited only to tech innovative industries, or applies to other external company outside of tech communities like logistics, real estate?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, everything is tech these days, right? So logistics and real estate, you might call that prop tech today. So it is not limited to digital or tech businesses. I would say, what businesses today are not digitally enabled, and what businesses today are not run better with digital processes and digital standards. So we are not tech only. However, I think that technology has a huge impact on the way it's literally changed the way that companies can go to market, and importantly, companies can scale. I know this from having been a CFO, that scaling the finance function is a huge part of building a successful growth company.
Okay. Then we have a question on the bridge platform that you mentioned. Is it for your internal cohort or management usage, or is it a public thing?
It's a public thing. It's brdg.app. So B is in broad, R is in Robert, D is in Delta, G is in George or Golf. It is in beta. I think it's invitation only. We've used it for over 2 years. A former Techstars managing director in Berlin, after leaving Techstars, decided to focus on this as his startup. I mean, the amazing thing about Techstars is most managing directors, all of them have startup activity. They are founders and CEOs, in my case, CFO themselves, who've worked in startups. You are not working with a McKinsey consultant, let's say. I'm not singling anybody out, but you're not working with a McKinsey consultant on your startup. It's very much a German model. You're working with a former founder, CEO, startup person as your, I mean, trading 6% of your equity to join an accelerator. That could seem like a very high price to pay, but you're getting a virtual co-founder. I've had CEOs tell me in Stockholm, I gave my CTO 14% of the company because of the value they added to me. So you were getting a former startup executive as your virtual co-founder for 6% of your equity. I mean, again, nobody joins Techstars for the money. They join for Techstars for life. They join for the hoodie that says you're part of the Techstars family. They joined for the worldwide network, which is, I mean, frankly, unparalleled. I mean, I'm amazed, having spent 3 days in Denver, the people that Techstars got to speak on stage for our benefit. Almost anybody in the startup community worldwide will come and speak at a Techstars event. It is just that well regarded. It is just that well understood and supported. That feeling is missing in the Nordic region, and that's part of what we're trying to do coming here. If founders don't know that we are different from Techstars of Sweden, techstars.se is not techstars.com, then we have a lot of work here to do to help build our own profile in the market, but we're building our profile to build the community's profile in the market. We're validating the Nordic region, and we are betting on the region with our own money. This is our money we're committing in the Nordic region.
Got it. We have a question from Jim. You mentioned traction. So is it important if the project has made some progress or not? Like, again, it's linked to the stage discussion. And Jim, if you have any follow-up question after this, you can unmute yourself and ask. So Alfredo, you mentioned traction. So is it important that the product or the project has some traction already?
I love questions from the audience. I wish we had more time and we can go over if you like. And I love when people can actually speak and not questions are read from my moderator. Traction is important. Like I said, it's team, TAM traction. So it's point number 5. Again, it depends. If you are trying to find product market fit, and traction is one of the ways you measure that, and you do that in program through an accelerator, it's not a knock against you that you haven't found it. But we often find the founding teams are solving problems and customers are finding them. And they come to an accelerator to scale and to find more customers and get more traction. So we have companies that have a few $1,000s in MRR, monthly recurring revenue, and we have companies that have no customers. And we have companies that come through the accelerator and have customers at the end of the program. There are companies all over their life cycle and all in their life cycle journey in Techstars. Again, if you tell me I'm a solo founder and I have no product and I have no traction and I'm addressing a small market, you're probably not going to get into Techstars. If you have a strong team with a history of working together that has very specific skill sets to solve the problem, you're addressing a large market, and you found traction, even if it's limited, and you have an MVP, that is a very strong proposition for you to join the Techstars community.
Got it. Talat also has a question. Talat, you want to speak live and ask your question? Let me know, otherwise I can read it out. Alfredo had a nice point. We can,
Sure.
I like hearing real people's voices.
Alfredo again, after last week, together in Riga, we were.
Yes.
I just wanted to raise the question. I mean, when we talk about Techstars, everybody's agreeing that you guys are very strong in US market, which the starting point is. I was wondering, how are you planning your journey in Europe? How are you going to meet startups with VCs? Are there any events already programmed as part of 13 weeks, or how's that going to work?
Yes, I mean, well, the 13-week accelerator program, don't underestimate how heads down you are. I mean, in the fall, 2 very large conferences in Europe, Tech Slush and Web Summit happen in Helsinki and Lisbon, respectively. And when you're in program, you don't have time to go out and be at a conference for 3 days like we were in Riga. If it's important for the founders to go for part of their fundraising and trying to find investors, then that's something that serves the program. But you were heads down in program for 13 weeks, building your company, spending 2 years of your company's life in 13 weeks. So as I mentioned, we have accelerators all over Europe. We've been in London since I think 2012. We do have a strong presence on the ground in Europe. I would just say my experience in talking to the other EMEA MDs, the brand does not resonate as strongly in Europe as it does in the United States. And that's something the CEO is working on. Her two global priorities for 2022 for this year were to reboot an accelerator in Paris, where we have already been, and to launch Stockholm. You can Google and you will see the press release where Techstars says these are our two global priorities. This was September 2021. So the CEO, who's a French woman, has said, Europe is my priority for this year. And I would argue being internal that Europe is a priority for the next 10 years. That is where incrementally the most activity will happen, the most development can happen, because the US is highly mature. And you've had China, India with a great deal of native development, a lot of inbound activity from the US. Every major venture firm in the United States has a presence in India, period, on the ground. Tell me the US venture firms of size, or really anybody who's on the ground here in Sweden. You just can't. Maybe they have a scout. Sequoia came to Stockholm Tech a few weeks ago. They have London-based presences, and they project from London out to markets in Europe. Europe is ridiculously ignored by US venture investors. Techstars coming to Sweden, I think, is a game changer in terms of a big, large firm coming to market. But if you ask most founders in Europe who Sequoia or Index or Excel Ventures, Andreessen Horowitz, there's a low level of knowledge of even who the biggest venture investors are. People are focused. I talk to founders in Zurich, and they say the community here is very conservative. American investors are not present here. And we can't get funded at the local level. So when UK and American investors come to a market, they're a game changer in terms of the checks they can write, the scale they can help companies achieve, the way they can help companies launch outside of their home market. And because European markets, some of them tend to be small, in the Baltic region, they want to scale in the Nordics. In the Nordic region, they want to scale in the United States. And we can help make that happen clearly. And we are validating the incredible activity and people talent that exists in Europe, which has been largely underserved by the venture capital communities in the United States and UK. We all know that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, Tyler. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, I already applied for the program, by the way.
Fantastic. I look forward to reviewing your application. Good luck. And I love the idea. And as you know, I'm happy to introduce you people in Stockholm who are also in mobile gaming advertising as well.
Brilliant. Any other questions? Just you can unmute yourself in the next couple of minutes and ask, and we can take that question live.
Yeah, and I'm happy to go over time.
Okay.
I don't know how much time you have, so you call time, but I'm here. It's now 5 o'clock in the morning for me in Denver, so I'm not going back to sleep. That's for sure.
Got it. Let's see.
Is anybody still left on the call? Did everybody jump off?
No, there are people. People are around.
It's Sweden. People are shy. Nobody ever asks questions.
Yeah.
I would say, don't make my wife ask a question. She's listening in. My kids are in school. Otherwise, they'd be on the call too. Got
it. Brilliant. But it's if so, Lena, maybe somebody's jumping in, but it's okay. I think we can wrap up the session in that case. Alfredo, thank you so much for joining in today for a very insightful, very deep talk on the not only about Techstars, but the entire and entrepreneurship ecosystem and your take on it. So really thankful that you could take out the time and join us. And a big thank you to our community out there on Startup Grind. Thank you guys, you're awesome. And we'll be announcing our next event schedule in a couple of weeks. And in the meantime, for the test Slack community, if somebody has not joined in yet, you can drop me a message on LinkedIn. So it'll be great to have you there as well. Thank you so much. Have a very, very nice weekend coming up.
Naimol, this has been a real privilege and pleasure for me. I told a number of people, my colleagues know that I had a 4 o'clock call this morning, and they said, whom are you talking to at 4 a.m.? It's not my first call at 4 a.m. this week, unfortunately. And I said, I'm hosting a call for Startup Grind. And people here are startup agents. And they said, that's amazing. We love Startup Grind. I mean, everybody knows who Startup Grind is. And it's really been a privilege to join this platform. And people here in Denver at this large company event we had in Denver this week, we're very excited to be to have Techstars promoted on Startup Grind in Stockholm. I mean, that's validating for the program in Sweden to be invited to speak on a platform like yours. You do an excellent job, as I said at the beginning, helping to support the startup community, not just in Sweden, but in the entire Nordic region, as given the many hats that you wear. I don't know how you do it now. And, it's been a privilege, and you have support and buy-in from a number of people here at Techstars who know that I was doing this call, and I really thank you for the opportunity. It's a way for us to communicate how excited we are about the Nordic region, how excited we are about Sweden, how excited we are about being in Stockholm to launch an accelerator program, and we hope to be here for a very long time.
Thank you so much, Alfredo. And I think it'll be so much awesome going forward, joining hands with you in building this ecosystem together. Thank you so much.
I think we have a question that I'm just seeing at the bottom of my screen. How can we apply? Maybe it wasn't entirely communicated. So techstars.com, not techstars.se. Again, this is very important. None of my colleagues worldwide have another company of the same name in the market as I do. So techstars.com, accelerator. And I think it's a good landing page because it talks about the value of an accelerator, what you get from it, what Techstars brings to the market. And then you can also choose the accelerator that suits you. And there's a process on the website that will guide you to where you want to go. And then we run programs 6 times a year. We are currently closing applications for the 5th term, which is the September to December period. And applications for that term close May 11th. So they're not far off, but I recommend that people just start the application process. It is longer than you think and longer than we would like to have. We're introducing a new application management software system May 9th, but it is not in time for this accelerator class. And I recommend just get in there and just get started. And if you can't get it completed by May 11th, I believe applications close December 7th for the next term, the spring term next year. We'll be running late March through early June next year. And we will do this twice a year, the spring period, the fall period. But I would hate for somebody who's ready now and is interested now to miss out on the fall accelerator program or chance because they didn't get their application in by May 11th. Talat, who was on the call, from Popping Games, he said he's already submitted his application. It's like anything else in the startup world. Done is better than perfect. Just get it started. Make a video of your team, make a video of your product if you have it, and get the application started. It's not as hard as you think it is, and you will learn a lot from the process.
Great. Thank you so much. So 11th May, that's the deadline for everyone. And as Alfredo is saying, just get on with it and send it. So if you want to be in the upcoming cohort. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Alfredo, a big thank you to you and to Techstars.
Thanks
Have
again,
a great day.
and everybody who's been on this call today. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.